Hello, my dear friends. Today, we're going to talk about presentation techniques and introductory activities. Okay, so what are the presentation techniques and introductory activities? First of all, these are ways used by the teacher to present, which means introduce to learners for the first time new language, such as vocabulary, some grammatical structures, and pronunciation. Introductory activities are those used by a teacher to introduce a lesson or a teaching topic. Okay, so here we have an elementary level secondary school group. Let's imagine you have got a group of such kids. So let's look at two different presentation strategies. So today we will look at PPP versus TBL. You may inquire what these mean. Well, PPP means presentation, practice, and production. Maybe you have heard about it before. And the second one is TBL, which is task-based learning. Okay, well, let's look at every technique in detail. So we'll start with PPP, which is presentation, practice, and production. Well, what does it look like? Well, let's imagine that the aim of your lesson with the group, which I have already mentioned, is to learn the difference between countable and uncountable nouns. Well, and when to use a and some with them. The procedure will consist of a number of steps. So let's look at every step in detail. So the first step, you ask students what food and drink they like at birthday parties. Well, like this, right? Second step, you stick on the board magazine pictures of different party foods, like they should be a mixture of countable and uncountable nouns. For example, ice cream, sandwiches, cola, fruit, bananas, chicken legs, cake, a box of sweets, whatever. Okay, then you ask students the names of the food items and write the names on the board under each picture, and then do a quick choral drill on the pronunciation of these words. Attention, here comes the presentation stage of your lesson, the stage that is particularly interesting for us as we are talking about presentation techniques. Well, say to students, I'm having a birthday party this weekend. I'd like a box of sweets and a cake for my party, and I'd like some ice cream, some cola, and some fruit. I'd also like some sandwiches, some bananas, and some chicken legs. Yeah, like you're thinking about what kind of food you're gonna have. Okay, let's pay attention. I have highlighted with red the key features that are interesting for you, the language that is interesting for you and for your students in this lesson. So like a box of sweets, a cake, some ice cream, some cola, some fruit, some sandwiches, some bananas, and some chicken legs. Okay, so next step. Say, I'd like a box of sweets. I'd like a cake. I'd like some ice cream, etc. And ask your students to repeat each sentence chorally. Well, like this. Okay. Point out to the students that you can count some nouns, but you can't count others. These are called countable and uncountable nouns. So you use a with singular countable nouns and some with uncountable nouns, or plural countable nouns. Probably if you just say that, it would not be particularly clear to your students, right? So you could also visualize that with, for example, this kind of table. Or you can highlight a and some in this table, and then it would be logical to ask students some concept checking questions, or CCQ in short. For example, which of the food items on the board are countable? which are uncountable, which are singular, which are plural. So thus you collect some feedback from your students. All right, the presentation stage is over. Let's go on. Next procedure, students do a written gap fill exercise, filling the gaps with a or some papers. And the next point, students work in pairs with a worksheet of pictures of food and drink items. One student tells the other what they'd like for their party. For example, I'd like some meat, or I'd like a cake, while the other students takes notes. Okay, so they then swap. Well, that's it. Now it's time for TBL. So, task-based learning, something around the same kind of material, but with a different twist, with a different approach. The aim of a TBL lesson would be stated in a different way. Students choose food and drinks for a birthday party. The procedure. Okay, again, we'll do stages. First, hold a discussion with the students about when their birthdays are, what presents they would like, what good birthday parties they have been to, and what they like to eat and drink at birthday parties, evidently. Next step, put students into small groups and give them a worksheet with pictures, names, and prices of lots of party food and drink on it. For example, this brochure will do. Next stage, tell the students to do this task. Choose the food and drink they would like for a birthday party for 10 friends, keeping within a price limit, for example, $10 maximum, or $5 for a person, as you like. Okay, next, the students do the task while the teacher goes around the class, listening and answering any questions that arise, like this. Next, each group tells the other groups what decisions they have made. Attention, here comes the presentation stage of your lesson. Presentation. So, the students ask the teacher questions about any language they needed for the task. Or the teacher tells the students about any language she noticed they didn't know while they were doing the task. For example, the pronunciation of some words, the grammar of uncountable and countable nouns. I'm sorry, instead of some, I write come. I hope you forgive me. So, very short presentation stage, isn't it? Okay, that's over. And next step, students do a written exercise on a new language, like write something, write a report, let's say. Okay, well, you've seen two types of lessons, right? So, you've seen PPP and you've seen TBL. So now there is a question to you. How do they differ? What differences in carrying out the lesson have you noticed? It's an open question. There is no right answer. So here, please leave me your answers as you see it. I would like to get some, extended answers from you. Thanks a lot. Let's go on. So now I'm going to give you some of my own information, how I see the situation, but I would like to start not with the differences between PPP and TBL, but with, well, we will look at the introductory part of the lesson, right? So what are the introductory activities, right? So the introductory stage of the lesson helps students to settle into the lesson and focus, right, on its content, yeah? So something like this. These are the examples of the introductory parts of lesson in PPP, as you can see it. And also the same story, we've got some introductory part with the TBL lesson. Like you can see this stages, these steps on the screen. if you want to look in detail, you can pause it and have a look, right? We have all covered these steps before. All right, so, well, actually, well, as I have already said, that the interactive part of the lesson helps students to settle into the lesson and to help them focus on its content. But there are two kinds of introductory activities. So there are warmers and there are lead-ins. Sounds like the same, but in fact, they are a bit different and they carry out a different function. So, and well, let's talk about warmers. So warmers are often used to raise students' energy levels or to make them feel like comfortable. You know, they are not always connected to the topic of the lesson. For example, it could be something like a quiz or like maybe a game or maybe some pair work activity. Okay, lead-ins in turn focus on the topic of new language well, they can also focus and motivate students and make a link between the topic of the lesson and the students' own lives, yeah, which we call personalization. For example, if in one lesson students are going to read a text about the internet, about the internet, rather than giving them the text immediately, we could do one or more leading activities, such as like discussing with students how often they use the internet, what they use it for, what their favorite websites are, etc. Or even another lesson, they're going to listen to a conversation about favorite television programs. The leading activities might be making a list of their favorite television programs, right? And discussing them with a partner. These activities will probably lead on to teaching relevant vocabulary for the text and some comprehension tasks to follow, right? Okay, if you, one second. So if you look back at the PPP and TBL lessons on page 60, if you look back at the previous, not on the page, if you look back at the previous stages, you will see that they too include introductory activities. Yes, so as I have already showed you in the PPP, yes, we had this introductory activity. Yes, the first step in PPP, and it mainly focuses on the leading to the topic, whereas stages 2 and 3, again, if you want, you can stop and have a look in a closer detail. So they mainly focus on leading for language, right? In the TBL lesson, like steps 1 and 2, are also lead-ins, right? Okay. So, these two lessons show two common and different approaches to presenting new language items, right? Probably you have already told me something in your recording where you were talking about the differences between PPP and TBL, right? Okay, so let's look at this into a closer detail, right? Okay, so in the presentation, practice and production lesson, well, there are some particular features peculiar to this particular strategy. So first of all, the lesson has a language aim. You're aiming at a language. The teacher first contextualizes the new language, which means the teacher puts it into a situation which shows what it means, as you can see in step 1. The teacher then makes sure that the students remember previously studied language, needed to practice the new language by eliciting it, which means asking students to say the language rather than giving it to them, right? And by doing a choral drill, so getting students to repeat as a whole class what he or she says, like I did in steps 2 and 3 in PPP. The teacher next presents the new language and the students just listen. When I was talking about myself, like what I would like to have for my birthday party, what kind of food I would like to have for my birthday party. The students then say sentences, including the new language, in a very controlled or restricted practice activity, one in which they can use only the new language and without making mistakes, like it's really controlled. The teacher tells students about the grammatical use of the new language. The teacher asks the students concept questions, which means questions that check their understanding of the use of the new language. It's when I displayed that table and then I ask my students like what food items refer to plural, singular, countable, uncountable and stuff. So the students then carry out another controlled practice activity, which was step 8 when they were doing the paperwork. And then the students do less controlled or freer practice, so where they can use their own ideas using the new language. And it was the final step in my PPP lesson, where the students were communicating to each other. Okay, so you see that in a PPP lesson, the teacher presents a new language in a context. It's very important. Your language focus should never be deprived of a context, otherwise it would confuse the students. So the teacher gets students to practice it in controlled practice activities when the teacher is holding tight on the situation, when the student's not given a lot of choice, a lot of freedom, so to say. The teacher then asks the students to use the new language in less controlled activities, for example, in some communicative way, right? So contextualizing, first getting your students in controlled practice and then giving them more freedom to express themselves using the new language, right? So this is a typical PPP flow, so to say. All right, then in a TBL lesson, right? So what are the main features of a TBL lesson? So the aim of the lesson is for the students to complete a task, an activity in which students try to achieve something real and have to communicate to do so. So it's not the language that is focused, not the language which is the aim of the lesson, it's completing the task. That is the aim. So the teacher starts by holding a discussion on the topic of the lesson. It's in step number 1, when you ask the new students some questions like what the best party they've ever been to, and so on and so forth. So the teacher then gives students tasks to do, like we did in steps number 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a TBL lesson. Then the teacher and students discuss any new problematic language they use for this task, right? So it's the time when the students can ask teacher the questions on the language that they had problems with during fulfilling the tasks previously, right? Okay, by the way, guys, if you don't remember what the steps refer to, you can, wind back and have a look at these particular steps. It's really important that you understand really what I mean by each point and the steps that I illustrated. Okay, so lastly, the students do an exercise on the new language, like in step number 7 when they were doing some written task. Okay, well, you can see that in a TBL lesson, the teacher gives students tasks to do and presents the new language after students have needed to use it, and only presents language that he or she or the students have identified as needed. So it's like you never have a certain plan of what language you're going to be presenting, because the needs for this language might appear as the students are carrying out this task. In this case, it is like more adjusted to the student, you know. Well, and so, well, in so let's talk about the positive and negative sides of both of these approaches. So what is good about PPP? So a PPP approach to present a new language gives students an opportunity to practice language in a safe learning environment where it is difficult to make mistakes. It can therefore be quite a confidence-building approach for students, but it makes students learn language items they may not be like always interested in, right? And not really ready to learn, and gives them few opportunities to really use the language for communication. Well, as for the TBL approach, on the other hand, it allows students to find new language when they want to, and to use the language experimentally and creatively for like real communication. In this way, it puts second language learners in a situation which is quite similar to the one in which children learn their first language. As some learners may find this approach to language learning exciting and challenging. Others may wish for more guidance, you know, and structure to help them. So it means that it is sometimes too hard for some students and it might be stressful, you know. Okay, of course, PPP and TBL are not the only ways of presenting new language. It's not like, you know, Republican and Democratic parties in the United States. No, there are some alternatives. It is also possible, for example, to present new language to learners after they have met it in a reading or in a listening text, which is first used for comprehension. Another possibility is to hold a discussion on a topic and introduce the new language in the context of the discussion. Another one is to give learners a task that requires them to use new language. Then, after the task, present the new language to them, and then give them another task to practice the new language. So that is called a TTT. You may notice that it's in a way kind of related to TBL, but not completely. Well, if you like, we can go on in detail about the TTT, like the differences between TTT and TBL. If it's not particularly clear to you, you can text me and ask me to clarify. I will gladly do this. So, presenting a new TTT means teach test. Sorry, it's wrong. Test, teach, test. I'm sorry, I have written it in the wrong way. I'm not going to improve it now as I'm recording the lecture. So test, teach, test, of course. So, okay, let's go on. Presenting new language involves making various choices. So first of all, you may ask yourself, like, when to present the new language: before, like in PPP, or after, like in TBL, learners try to use the new language, right? So do we teach them before they try or after they try? Okay. What and how many language items to present? Like, do you have to present it in like new grammar structures or new vocabulary, new phrases, new phrases function, new functional exponents, new topics, right? So in PPP, the teacher makes this choice. In TBL, the teacher and or the learners make the choice. So if in PPP, you decide what you're going to teach beforehand, in TBL, this choice, the choice of language arise during the lesson, and like it appears itself, so to say, independently of you. So like it's like a collaboration between your students sometimes. Well, what context to present the new language in? So in both TBL and PPP, new language items are presented in a meaningful context. That is, one that shows the meaning of the new language and should be personalized. What aids to use to help create the context? For example, pictures or video or like audio tracks or maybe some worksheets, right? So what kind of aids you're going to be using during practicing, and creating the context. How to show the meaning or use of the new language. So you can show it through explanation, you can translate it simply, you can present through a situation as we have seen in my example. So what aspects of new language to present? Do you have to include all of the following, like both like meaning and use and pronunciation and grammar and spelling, or only some of these items, right? Okay. So the introductory activities involve the teacher in selecting interesting and relevant warmers and lead-ins. So the warmers make the students feel comfortable and ready for the lesson. And the lead-ins introduce the topic of the lesson and main language points needed by the learners to complete the main task of the lesson. So, but I think I'm repeating myself. So you may not always need to do warmers, as learners may arrive at a lesson ready to learn, right? So surprise, warmer is not a 100% must. So the ways you present new language or introduce lessons will depend on your learners, of course. So on their level, interests, age, what language they already know, weaknesses, strengths in English, and on their learning styles. They will also depend on the resources available to you in your school and the approach to presentation used in your course book, right? So this is what also can determine how you answer these choices and questions. Okay, good. Now, the talking head period is going to finish. It's time for you to think and tell me something. So let's get the first activity. Which of these are presentation activities? Let's look. I have got a list of 7. The teacher says to new functional exponent and asks now the learners to repeat them. I'm sorry for my misprints again. Next, the learners read a newspaper article and do a comprehension task on it. The learners ask the teacher how to say something in English, and the teacher tells them. The teacher points out to learners that in the task, many of them mispronounced the word station. So she asks them to repeat after her. The learners have a discussion. The learners translate a short poem into Russian. The teacher uses a picture story to create a context for introducing he and she. Okay, I can tell you that out of these 7 activities, only 4 are actually presentation activities. Can you guess which? Can you text or voice me your answer here, please? Thanks a lot. Let's check it out. Ta-da! 1, 3, 4, and 7. If you have guessed, you're brilliant. Okay. Again, if you need my clarification on why it is so, you can first rewatch this lecture. Second, text me and I will explain to you personally. It's great if you send me a screenshot of a particular page that you're viewing right now. It will be clearer for me. Okay, good. Let's go on to the next part. Do you agree? Why not? As usual, we will hear some phrases from teachers. You will have to comment on whether you agree to it. And importantly, why or why not? Please add it, because sometimes you're just like, I don't agree. No, I would like an explanation. Actually, the explanation is the most precious thing to me. So first, teacher, TBL is close to the way we learn our first language. Do you agree with that? Please tell me. Thank you. Learners prefer a PPP to a TBL approach. Is it true for you? Is it true for your learners? Thank you. I always present new language in the same way as I was taught at school. Is it true for you? Why do you do that? Why do you not? Thank you. Oh, well, okay. Next one is only for those who are already practicing teaching. So look at a unit in your course book that presents new language. Does it use PPP, TBL, or another approach? And if it is another approach, which one have I mentioned it? Or maybe I have not, or maybe it's a mixture of approaches. So please leave me your comments here. Comments. Oh, right, thank you. Coming up to the final step, TKT. So we have got, so to say, several parts of a presentation stage. And like, for example, this, it looks like went, came, chose, swam, ate, thought, ran. Okay, could you please give like a name to this part of a stage? I will give you some options. For example, this number one, it's a concept question. It's like aids in presentation. It's context for presentation, what you can see, number one. It's a freer practice activity. It's language selected for presentation. Is it a controlled practice activity, or is it an explanation of use? So when the teacher just displays to the students this, went, came, chose, swim, ate, thought, ran, what is it? And the right answer is E. Of course, this is the language which is selected for presentation, the language that you're going to work with. You can already notice that these are the past forms of irregular verbs. Okay. Next part of the presentation. A teacher tells the learners about a wonderful holiday she went on last summer. What is this? Choose the correct name for it. And the right answer is C. Context for presentation. You are creating the context for your presentation. Okay, goodbye, C. Next stage, photos of last summer's holiday. What are these? And of course, these are aids in presentation. Next part, the teacher asks, what am I talking about? The past, the present, or the future? Question mark. So what is it? Oh, my brilliant ones. A, of course. I hope you have guessed. It's a concept question. You're checking the understanding of the function of the new language. Okay. The teacher drills pronunciation of new words. What is it? And that is a controlled practice activity. When you ask the students to repeat in chorus after you, it's very, very, very controlled, right? It's hard to make a mistake in such kind of activity, although some people do find ways. All right, the teacher says, we use the past tense to talk about actions in the past that have completely finished. Is it a free practice activity, or is it an explanation of use? Difficult choice. And the right answer is, guess what? G. Well done. I hope 100% of respondents have given the correct answer. Okay, guys, I guess that it is it. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you liked my lecture. I'm apologizing for different misprints. I'm sorry, it was just too much material. I know this lecture is big and it may be hard, but I hope that it's worth it. So take care. See you in a while.